What a stunning day to be heading out on a glorious outer London adventure. And any walk that starts with Gordon S. Maxwell's 1927 book Just Beyond London is gonna be a cracker. So I regard Maxwell as the kind of godfather of this thing that I do, whatever you want to call that. But like he says in the introduction, the wonderful introduction to that book, all old suburbs of London have their stories. And it was reading Just Beyond London and The Fringe of London by Gordon S. Maxwell that was the inspiration for my book, This Other London. And the walk I'm doing today, if I'd done exact book 2, This Other London, this would have been in it. We're going to an amazing location up here at Headstone. Headstone Manor is what he writes about, the mystery of the ancient moated manor of Headstone that has so much history just in one place, dating from 825, Thomas of Becket. There's great stories. Becket does some good stuff there. Sadly, one of the last places that he was seen alive, apart from Canterbury obviously, and other great stories. And from there, at the moated manor house, the oldest timber-framed building in Middlesex. There's a whole thing there about Middlesex, isn't there? Where's Middlesex? Does it exist? And from there we're going to pick up the Yeading Brook and follow the Yeading Brook for, well, until we stop following it, I guess. And isn't Harrow and Wealdstone Station an absolute treasure? Come out here just to look at that, particularly if you like railways. I think it dates from 1837. I'll put the correct date on the screen if that's not right. Wow, look at this beautiful sort of Art Deco apartment block here, Warwick Court. So of course we are here in Metroland. And this is another little treasure here as well. Look at this. And more Metroland dreamscapes here beside the road. How wonderful. That's a name with a story, isn't it? Dane's Game. And I hope this doll is returned to its rightful owner. He's sitting here waiting patiently. So we're just going to head down here, down Headstone Drive, and then we should be stepping back into the 9th century pretty soon. So if you were wondering where the old Kodak factory was, I guess that chimney at Eastbourne Village must mark the point. And this is striking in its own way. I guess this is the new Metroland. I guess it's good to get a dose of the new before we delve back into the old. Brook Drive over there, foreshadowing our walk along the Yeading Brook once we've had a look at the Headstone Manor. And I think it's always worth pointing out when you're in a part of London, as we are now, look, London Borough of Harrow, and I can say you're not in London, and the postcode is HA2. It's not a London postcode traditionally, it's one of the old Middlesex postcodes, but of course, poor old Middlesex doesn't exist anymore, apart from in the hearts and minds of people. The lost county of Middlesex, and such an important county it was when you look at the area of London that it covered, and yet it could all be swept away by a stroke of the administrative pen. But it still exists, it's there in spirit, and some would say in place. This is where I must of course mention my old pal Nick Papadimitriou, because that was Nick's thing. His website was literally called middlesexcountycouncil.org.uk. He used to get all sorts of emails about planning, bin collections, all that sort of stuff, all sorts of complaints. And the documentary that became the London Perambulator, the working title for that was The Last King of Middlesex. Good title. Not as good as London Perambulator, but good title, I think. Great. We've got here relatively pain-free. And I think I'm now far more excited about visiting Headstone Manor and Gardens than I am walking the Yeading Brook, which is interesting because I'm only up here because I wanted to walk the Yeading Brook. Fantastic bit of pebbled ash here. That's what I had a real desire for today, a good old suburban yomp thrashing around amongst the pebbled ash and privet. And I was so busy nattering away, I nearly missed my first view of the Yeading Brook, glorious Yeading Brook, which rises higher up in Harrow Weald, but this apparently is the first place where you can see it above ground. Isn't that magical? And the Yeading Brook has been on my list for a long time, about 12 years. And I really want to make sure that I approach this majestic 14th century moated manor house and its fantastic barns over that moat. The last surviving filled moat in Middlesex. And you can't beat a good official information board that tells us about the history of this land being recorded in 825 when the princess, the Anglo-Saxon princess, I can't pronounce that, Conrinth, gave it to Wilfrid, Archbishop of Canterbury. So it's been held by the Archbishops of Canterbury since 825. But of course, for an Anglo-Saxon princess to give it to Wilfrid, this manor must have been held by her before that, so the date would go back further. And it was a working farm for the next 1,100 years. And at some point inevitably came into the ownership of Henry VIII. And here is that majestic moat. This moat here being built in 1310. Isn't that astonishing? Just here in the suburbs of London. History is alive and well. This is the small barn here, which dates from around 1550. And when Gordon S. Maxwell visited in the mid-1920s, this was still a working farm, although it was in the process of hopefully changing hands to the London County Council, although its future at that point was uncertain. So it's fantastic that the barns and the house still survive. I think I have to go inside the museum for a little look around. And this enormous great barn here, I mean, it is called the Great Barn, was built in 1506 and is seen as an indicator of the wealth of the land and how profitable it was for the Archbishops of Canterbury at the time. It is huge. Across the moat we go to the manor house. This really is an astonishing place. To be able to walk around a 14th century moated farmhouse is incredible. To sit in the Great Hall built in 1310 and to think when you're in the bedroom, well, this manor house wasn't the one that was known to Thomas à Becket, but the idea of Thomas à Becket staying here in the 12th century. And it was when he was staying here that he excommunicated the vicar and the rector of Harrow, who had sided with Henry II in Thomas's dispute against the royal family, which didn't end too well for Thomas at all, did it? And actually Thomas stayed here at Headstone Manor just before he then travelled down to Canterbury, where he met his gruesome end. This is a land just littered with history. One of the Archbishops of Canterbury fell foul of the locals though, or let's just say incurred their displeasure when he chopped down a large amount of trees on the land here and used the timber to help build his new college of All Souls College at Oxford, which still stands today. The earliest timber framed building still surviving in Middlesex. And it must put it amongst the oldest timber framed buildings still surviving in the whole of Greater London. It's fantastic to be stood on this lawn here and realise you're stood on a moated island. Astonishing. And it's no surprise at all that this is a scheduled ancient monument. It's surely one of the most precious buildings in the whole of Greater London. What an absolute gem, a real gem. Maxwell talks about this being a garden made for daydreams, and you can certainly see what he means, can't you? Absolutely beautiful. Before you wonder why I'm not going in search of the headstone itself, apparently the name comes from the Anglo-Saxon word meaning for a farm enclosed by a hedge, so it would have been Hegston or Hedgeston, which at some point became Headstone. And you can see why Gordonus Maxwell was so taken with this place when he visited here in the mid-1920s, 100 years ago. Wow, 100 years ago Gordonus Maxwell was here. And at that point its future was uncertain, so he'd be over the moon with what it's become. I've been so beguiled by Headstone Manor, with the glorious Headstone Manor, with all its such rich history, and the wonderful museum there telling the story of the London Borough of Harrow. I'd almost forgotten this was actually intended as a walk along the Yeading Brook. Like I say, a walk I've wanted to do for a very long time. I remember crossing Ickenham Marsh on a walk, I think it was about 2012, 2013, and I was like, I'm going to come back and walk that river, the Yeading Brook. So we're going to pick it up here on the edge of the park, follow it down to North Harrow, very straightforward, and then I think we can walk along its course most of the way, and we'll certainly go as far as RAF Northolt, and who knows, maybe we'll go further than that. But today is about just enjoying this territory, this rich territory here, and maybe taking it a little bit slow. It's good to take things slow. Getting into slow living. You might think from watching these, I've always been into slow living. Maybe I have. And here are the gentle waters of the Yeading Brook. And not only are we walking this beautiful little stream here, the Yeading Brook, but it's also the source of the River Crane. And the Crane is one of the great rivers of London. And I walked along sections of the River Crane whilst doing the London Loop, so I will link to that section below. That was a great walk. And the Yeading Brook has two branches. This is the western one, and the eastern branch starts life as a little stream called the Roxbourne, or the Roxy, as my friend Nick Papadimitriou used to call it. And we did that walk for our radio show, Ventures and Adventures in Topography. Links below and all that. And I remember that walk very well because I was just trying to get a recording of the water here and nearly slipped into the water, which I did that day whilst recording the audio for our walk along the Roxbourne. That walk along the Roxbourne must have been about 15 years ago now, 2010, and we were really lucky that day. It was a really lovely day because we were joined by a wonderful author called Tim Bradford, who'd written, I think now, a really underrated book now called The Groundwater Diaries, about the kind of cultural life, if you like, of lost rivers, that definitely deserves a very high place in the canon of lost river literature. And Tim, I think, links it to music and stuff like that. And so Tim was great company that day. We had a really good day. Really good day. I mean, even with me slipping in the river, which I think actually is the thing that they would remember for it being a great day. Today's the 23rd of September, and it feels too soon to be enjoying the crunch of cob nuts underfoot. But here we are. Some nice looking allotments here, kind of thing that Sean James Cameron would love. Short amount of road walking now, just down to North Harrow, and then I think we can pretty much walk along the river. North Harrow station, and it's just past here on the right that we turn off to the Yeading Brook. Turn into Northumberland Road, and it's just down here. And here she is, peaceful little Yeading Brook. Has this been a character in any of the Banner and Ovich Rivers of London books yet? Don't think it has. good candidate, Ben, I would say. I think that was just a goldfinch. It was a golden coloured small bird anyway. Gold, I'd say golden coloured, golden flashes, but this is where we can play our game of imagining what the deity of the Yeading Brook would look like, what they would do, what their place in society would be, what their occupation would be. It's a good game, isn't it? Maybe that's what that little bird was telling us. And I do love when you've got a proper acknowledgement of the river and the Yeading Walk, and it says it's a 7.5 acre, 500 yards long green corridor linking Rayners Lane in the west with Northumberland Road in the east. It's great, isn't it? With the river flowing through this green corridor. A site of importance for nature conservation. Wonderful. So I think what I saw was a grey wagtail. How lovely. I see these on the board. It's lovely to have seen it first in real life. And this already is such a peaceful, beautiful little stream here, isn't it? Already one of my favourites. And in the spirit of slow, I think I'm going to sit on this bench here and have my chicken tikka baguette for lunch. I think I'm thinking about the whole idea of slow, the slow movement today, because I took part in the Slow Film Festival at the weekend with the brilliant filmmaker John Smith. What a lovely festival at Good Shepherd Studios in Leytonstone. And these walks are a great example of the slow movement, paying attention to the small details in the environment around you, appreciating your local heritage and the place where you live, where you happen to be, the region where you live, or just the things, the simple things, taking slowly. So I'm obviously setting up the fact I don't know how much of the Yeading Brook I'll walk. It's 16 miles. Whether that's, I would say that must include the River Crane section of it though, because I can't see how this is 16 miles, but who knows, we'll wait and see. I left home nearly 4 hours ago, about 4 hours ago, and I'm only now really, I'm still in the early parts of the Yeading Brook. It's mainly because of Headstone Manor, right? Well, that was a delightful lunch stop, however brief. It's time to get back on the move. And I think we've probably now passed into the London Borough of Hillingdon, because the leaflet I have is from, or that I printed out, is called The Willow Trail, produced by Hillingdon Council as part of the Hillingdon Trail. Visually, I would say it does look like there's a bit of grey water pollution in here. Sort of misconnected pipes and runoff from washing machines and the like. I can't really smell anything, so. And this really is a lovely little green corridor, a real credit to the local area. Great little stone bridge here. It's always nice to see when they put an effort into these, functional things. The Yeading Walk continues, and we are still in Harrow, not yet in Hillingdon. Just to the left of the river there, you see yet more allotments, which are a real feature of river walks around London. I guess because the land flooded and wasn't really suitable for much else. Ladbroke Close. I'm not aware of a tributary of the Yeading Brook at this point called the Ladbroke, or an alternative name called the Ladbroke, so that will need to be looked up. There's always a few things, aren't there, to be looked up afterwards. Wonderful corrugated hut here. It belongs to the Streamside Horticultural Association. I love stuff like this. However, I did think that the path continued down here. Maybe it does beside the hut. Let me check. I don't think. No, this is definitely not. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of the old suburban river walk zigzag, as I like to call it, around the streets. So we turn into Church Avenue here, which takes us back to the river by all accounts. Streamside open space, and the river is just down here. And here's the river. And the river itself, in many ways, isn't the thing. It's just the device that opens up the landscape, helps us see it in a different way. And Maxwell's book, Just Beyond London, is subtitled Home Travellers' Tales, with some glimpses of Rus in suburb, and he splits it out with hyphens. Because he was thinking at the time, he imagined the suburbs of London were quite new. He was writing 100 years ago. And he said there was a certain sort of snobbishness. I think he hung around people in the city. And there was this snobbishness to the suburbs. Ooh, suburb, less than the urban, less than the town. And he's saying, no, you've got to look at it differently. Outside, to be outside the town. Places where there's still great history, great stories, great countryside. Look at me. I'm walking, well, I mean, there's houses just over there. But I'm walking through woodland 100 years after Maxwell was writing, and there still is a little bit of that, isn't there, about areas. I have it when I tell people I went walking in Harrow, I went to Pinner, I went to Plumstead, Perryvale, Leytonstone. People are going to go, oh, why are you making videos about that? Well, hopefully I don't need to convince you. This is not the route. I kind of want to go and have a look at Pinner Telephone Exchange and Postmaster's Lodge. I mean, it's actually a little bit of a disappointment. I could project great legends and mysteries and conspiracies onto that building. I mean, maybe I will. We've got to go around the block again. I know some people would say I've probably gone round the bend already. This is a proper old tube track bridge. Wonderful crossing. I have to look it up. Either the Metropolitan line or the Piccadilly line. And we must be approaching the boundary with Hillingdon. So it's a really good time to contemplate the history of Harrow, the amazing history of Harrow. Of a place of great antiquity where people first settled here 10,000 years ago. Which is amazing, isn't it? And there was significant Roman settlement in the modern borough of Harrow before the Anglo-Saxons arrived. And then we enter the story of Headstone Manor. And we enter the really lovely Roxbourne Park, taking its name from the other branch of the Yeading Brook. And London is just so blessed with parks and open spaces, isn't it? And it looks like we're about to be blessed with rain, which I didn't see in the forecast. Really do love these suburban walks. I love them. This is where London really is. I mean, this is where, as one of the old topographical books is titled, another one from the 20s, Where London Sleeps. This is where London sleeps, out in places like Harrow and Ickenham and Ruislip, Wanstead and all those other places. I love it. And we're back right beside the river again. I mean, the river is always guiding us, even when we're walking through the streets. We just can't see it. And here I love all the information boards. It shows a real care for this aspect of the environment. Roxbourne Park, and it tells us we're in the Crane Valley. It tells us about the river here, the Yeading Brook rising from 9 springs in the low hills of the Harrow Weald, flowing gently into Hillingdon and Ealing, where it eventually is known as the River Cray. It's great, isn't it? Absolutely great. And I'm trying to think where we are. We are here. We're here. So we'll certainly walk down to here, down to Guthridge Woods. I'm not sure if we'll go much further, but who knows? You never know. fantastic tree there, leaning over the path beside the river. Wow. This is a really great section of the Yeading Brook walk. And here comes the rain, the unforecast rain. This concrete platform here, right just above the river, deserves to be looked into. It might be nothing, it might just be some cabling or something, but who knows, it could be something else, because there is another bit of concrete down here on the edge of the river, on the far side there. So sometimes it's indicative that there was buildings along here. I always go to some sort of Second World War infrastructure, but who knows. And right next to it is one of those lovely little miniature railways that's running around this field here. They're really great. There's one of those in Ridgeway Park in Chingford. Kids and adults alike love riding on a miniature steam train. Who doesn't? Who doesn't? Be interesting to see what Venue 5 used to be called once upon a time. Looks like it was a fine old sort of 1930s mock Tudor pub, doesn't it? It's quite fancy a cup of tea right now, but I think I have to wait a bit. And the undergrowth around the brook has been cleared away. I wonder what this is entering here. There is a tributary, so maybe that's it there, or it could be runoff from nearby buildings. And interestingly here, it's not far from here that you can pick up the River Pin walk, which I did almost exactly 4 years ago, and that was an amazing walk. And the path is right here. This is a real example to other boroughs on how to do riverside walks. It's fantastic. There's an egret here. Of course, the egret is resistant to me getting close, but hopefully you can just see it through the undergrowth. Beautiful. There is something so magical about seeing an egret on a suburban waterway. I remember seeing one down in South London when I was walking the River Shuttle, which is still one of my favourite walks of any category, let alone suburban river walks. That was a great walk, highly recommend it. There's a real poetry to these kind of landscapes. The backs of garages, the little rusty bridges, the children's playgrounds, the goalposts. So delightful, I love it. Really speaks to my heart. I bet whole legends have been spun in that meander there, where the pigeons just left a deposit in the river. Wow, that path behind the gate there has got some romance to it, hasn't it? Where's that going, and why is it all locked off? The Black Bull pub over there has an enormous car park, doesn't it? And as much as I'd like to stop for a cup of tea, I'm not the kind of guy who can go for tea in a pub unless I'm like proper desperate. Another egret down there, or it could even be the same egret. I don't know how territorial they are. So this part of the walk is called the Jim O'Neill Walk, and we are in the London Borough of Hillingdon now, very firmly. This parade of shops here at West End Road near Ruislip Garden Station has the promise of a cup of tea, I'd say. It's a shame Munch's is shut. That'd have been perfect. Look at that. I love these kind of Broadway buildings here, these parades, West End Parade. What a fine bit of like 1930s architecture. However, I cannot see anywhere to have a cup of tea. Interesting to find a pie and mash shop, Hughes's. I wonder if the brilliant Jake Greene, the photographer of London's pie and mash shops, has captured that one. I'm sure he has. I've never been in a Wenzel's before, and now I've been twice in a day. And this is quite an important spot in this walk here. This bridge opposite Rystick Garden Station is where I first got the idea to walk the Yeading Brook. I got the tube here from Leytonstone and just headed out on a random wander, and I thought I'll come back and walk this river one day. And Stafford Road open space is where I'll stop for my cup of tea. That was an incredibly restorative tea and donut, and now it's time to crack on for the next, and I should say final section of the walk. What a day it's been. Time gets warped in the suburbs. I think that's why Doctor Who spends so much time in the London suburbs. Sylvester McCoy spent all his time on Earth in Perivale, not that far from here. Because I left home this morning about 10 o'clock, just after 10. It's now 5 o'clock. I don't know where the time's gone. It's got bent and twisted all over the place. It's a little frustrating that I don't think there is a clear view of RAF Northolt, which is just behind the trees there. I seem to remember walking along the chain link fence at some point, so maybe there'll be something later on. So after this is a piece to camera. The RAF Northolt over there is the oldest RAF base in continuous use. In fact, it even predates the formation of the RAF. It was originally used by the Royal Flying Corps in 1915, so it has a very long and illustrious history. It's now actually London's VIP airport. It's where the royal family and the government fly in and out of Northolt Airport. It is still an active strategic RAF base. If you look at the website, they do talk about it being a site, you know, a strategic RAF base. I think there's 2 or 3 squadrons based here. This year is the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, and RAF Northolt played a key role in the defence of London and of the country as a whole. Among the units based at RAF Northolt was number 303 Polish Fighter Squadron, who actually became the highest scoring Hurricane squad in fighter command. Its Czech pilot, Josef Franizek, I think that's how it's pronounced, becoming the 4th highest RAF ace during the Battle of Britain. To disguise the airport from German bombing, they actually painted a fake stream across the runway, which was probably inspired by the presence of the Yeading Brook. There were 148 confirmed Luftwaffe aircraft shot down by pilots operating at RAF Northolt. There's a Polish war memorial dedicated to all Polish airmen who lost their lives during the Second World War, and it's in one corner of the airfield. Unfortunately, our walk doesn't take us in that direction. And it was the first place to operate Spitfires into Germany from here during the Second World War. It's a really kind of iconic, it's an iconic London location, and of course it's an important, incredibly important location in the story of London during World War II. The river runs beside it. Is that who the deity of the Yeading Brook is going to be? Is the deity of the Yeading Brook going to be a former Archbishop of Canterbury or a Polish fighter pilot? So this part of the river landscape is said to be reminiscent of what it was like here before the airport was built. You know, the RAF base was built, before the trains and the houses came. And they've actually reintroduced grazing cattle in this field here, so I wonder if we'll see any. And I've had to come off the path to make my way through this long grass here to get to the gate, and I can think the cows are guarding the gate over there. It's the last 2 walks where cows have played a role, and you can see how long and clumpy this grass is as we make our way through the marshes. And I remember something similar happening the first time I walked here. And it was very wet, even though it was August, it was really wet. Ankle deep water. The cow there almost seems to be waiting for someone to come, doesn't it? Who's waiting at the gate? Maybe they're waiting for their feeding time. I didn't film that bit because I had to go right round this guy, and I mentioned in the previous video there's been some scares about cows attacking people. Apparently they're not attacking the people, they're sort of like scaring off the dogs, but so I've heard. But even so, I had to come right round him to go through here. What a lovely old fella. This is where we meet the Hillingdon Trail. Apparently this is the way to an ancient lane called Austin's Lane that leads up to Ickenham, and we could go that way. But I think what we'll do is we'll carry on across Ickenham Marsh to the A40 and decide what to do when we get there. And this way as well, we're still sticking to the Yeading Brook, which is just down there to the left of the frame. Deep beneath the undergrowth. Ah yes, this is the part of Ickenham Marsh I remember very clearly walking across. However many years ago it was, I think it might be 2013, 12 years ago. I can hear the distant rumble of the A40. The roar of the A40 Western Avenue, the road that links me back to the place of my birth, takes me right there, almost to the front door. And here our Yeading Brook makes its way beneath the road. Well, I was going to say this is where we say farewell to the river, but I can't find the river to say farewell to. So I'll have to drop in another shot of the last view that we got. So I did think this is where I might end the walk, here, and then walk along to Hillingdon Station, which is quite close by. But I'm feeling drawn along the road a bit longer. I don't know where it will take us to. Shall we do it? It's not the Yeading Brook anymore, but it's something else. To be fair, if I were continuing to walk along the Yeading Brook, I think I'd still need to walk along this path here, because yes, I don't know how you get back to the river at this point. In fact, I'm about to find out. It would be through here. And I remember, oh, this is quite astonishing. This is worth looking at. I mean, this is obviously something to do with the national grid, with the power structure, but I don't know what. It's unusual, isn't it? Isn't that uncanny? And I think this is one of the meadows I walked along before, or on one of those walks anyway. I think I am going to walk to Hillingdon Station, which is the nearest station, rather than the 1.5, 2 miles to South Ruislip. I think the walk is finished. I've done 11.5 miles today in total. It's a decent walk. I've left the Yeading Brook. I don't feel there's anything to be gained. There is the Polish War Memorial up the road there, but I just feel there'd be a point where I'd be along the A40, I'd be thinking, oh, wish I'd gone to Hillingdon. Also, there's a pub that looks all right near Hillingdon Station, so this must be one of the places you can get on and off the Oxford Tube, I suppose. Hillingdon Parade. It's a good end for the walk, I feel. That looks like a fine newsagent's over there. I'm going to offer a libation to the deity of the Yeading Brook and the ghosts of Headstone Manor in the Swallow over there. So this is where I will bid you farewell. Thank you so much for joining me on that amazing day. Headstone Manor was incredible, wasn't it? That's one of the most special places in London. How often am I going to say that? I'll keep saying it because it keeps being true. And the walk along the Yeading Brook. So I massively appreciate you coming along with me today. I enormously appreciate all my supporters on Patreon and here are the YouTube members and you coming every week to watch these videos. I love your lovely comments. And as I always like to say, I look forward to seeing you next walk, wherever that may be.
It's over the meadow, over the stream, it's where I am going and where I have been. It's been a long day now, it's time for a bit.